All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for settling quickly. I think that that response, in addition to the band quieting down, is an indication of everybody experiencing a hot Friday morning and wanting to make sure we get going on time and get finished on time. And there are some other deadlines that we have to work with. So we're going to move crisply. We like to treat our groundbreakings this way. They are a celebration of, and especially in this case, a very long road to have gotten here, which we'll talk about along the way. But they're also not the finish line. The finish line is a completed building for sure, but the finish line is a completed neighborhood. And while this building is very, very important, it's also a step along the way and a step in a process that includes the building that's right behind you. I do want to call your attention to that. That's Montgomery Heights 1, and Montgomery Heights 2 is going to be behind us. And these are signature projects on MLK or High Street's corridor. And I can't help today but remember a day when the Housing Authority took Raheem and I. Raheem, I'd like to introduce Raheem. Wave. Raheem is our partner in the Project 1 real estate development, and we are Penrose 1 completing this project. And we took a tour of the High Street corridor with the Newark Housing Authority, and they told us all the great things that could and should happen along the way. And they're happening, and they've happened, and we'd love to accelerate that pace, but the momentum has not stopped, and this is an exciting moment along that way. Our first speaker in your programs is our Senator Cory Booker, and you would see a lot more Secret Service here if he were here. He is not here. And unfortunately, we're not able to hear from him today. And that is a big disappointment, not because he should be here or we should compel him to be here, but because he has some very, very specific ties to this property and this project that are important. It is an oft-told story that he tells much better than I will, that he lived in the buildings that were once on this property. Yeah. And on it goes, but very much a jumping off point for our former mayor and our now senator, who is fighting a good fight for us still today. That's. And when I say us, I think that means the city of Newark and certainly projects like this, but also he's here today clearly, if it's not completely understood, on behalf of the healthcare bill that supports a lot of the residents that occupy our buildings. And that is, as our mayor is saying right next to us, where he should be. And so he's working hard for us right now and has been a very, very strong advocate for the low-income housing tax credit, which will be the next thing challenged, if ever, there is a healthcare progress. The low-income housing tax credit will be a part of tax reform, and so when you all, I know I'm preaching somewhat to the choir and to the band, when you all hear about tax reform, hear about the low-income housing tax credit, and you hear about 70% of the capital stack, 70% of the dollars that go to projects like this, and hear that that's threatened when you hear about tax reform. I could bang that drum really hard. Tony Marquetta will help me. I'll hold the drum, you hold the, yeah. With that said, our senator gives his regrets, and we will move on to our other partner. The Newark Housing Authority is the longtime landowner of the property behind us and our longtime partner in projects that include Montgomery Heights and City View Landing and many other projects in this neighborhood done by others over the very important years that have passed. Newark Housing Authority in this project is a lender, is a property owner, and of course is our partner. And we've gone through lots of different variations. The numbers of pro formas and budgets and methods of completing this project that are on the cutting room floor are not to be underestimated. And so it's kind of cool that my friend Ellen Harris is here, who's been there throughout and is here to speak on behalf of the Housing Authority.
To my mayor, our commissioners, our friends at HUD, our municipal council representatives, and to all of you, a great good morning to you all. Thank you for joining us for yet another milestone in the portfolio of the Newark Housing Authority. As Tim has said, this initiative is a joint venture between Penrose, One Real Estate Development, and the Newark Housing Authority. The Newark Housing Authority acquired the Brick Towers building on this site behind us in 2002. By 2005, we were locked in fierce federal litigation and a war of wills with the remaining residents of Brick Towers. Yes. So this group was led by the formidable Virginia Jones. Yes, yes, yes. Mrs. Jones made us understand that they needed more from the Housing Authority than the dialogue that they were receiving. They wanted us to hear that this was not just bricks and mortar. It was not just simply a failing monument to days gone by. They needed the NHA to hear that this was a place that they called home, and it was worthy of a carefully planned and considered development on this site. In 2006, we reopened communication with the remaining residents, and we were able to reach an agreement about the type of building that would occupy this site. Now, after 11 years of planning and assembling $45.8 million, we're building a multifamily development on this site. The substantial fiscal development would not have been possible without our funders, HUD, New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency, in providing the 4% low-income tax credit, Capital One, Hudson Housing Capital, and Bellwether Enterprise. But today, we stand at what is possibly the highest point in our city to celebrate the construction of what will be one of the highlights, the jewel in our portfolio. Over the years, we've had many partners in planning, and it occurs to me that we drink deeply from wells that we didn't dig. So therefore, we can't complete the celebration without acknowledging the efforts of people who have since moved on. And certainly, we have to acknowledge the efforts of our former executive director, Keith Kennard, for reopening the dialogue with the residents of Brick Towers so that we could meet and talk until we could walk together toward a real future for this site. Also, the visionary Karen Turan, who drove the design process in a way that the community partners could understand. And we also have to acknowledge Diane Johnson, the former director of the Newark HUD office, who advocated on our behalf to preserve the HUD funds that have been allocated to this site while we worked on plans to move the development forward. And also thanks must be extended to Morris Warner and his extraordinary team of professionals who work daily to make today possible. So we've been intentional in our design, and we also acknowledge Wallace, Roberts, and Todd. We've listened to the concerns of our neighbors in the historic High Street area. We especially appreciate the input of our neighbors at Hyde Park Gardens, because it's important when you're new to a neighborhood, you need to make friends, you need to show yourself neighborly. Montgomery 2 will be a 154-unit development consisting of mid-rise and townhouse-style apartments expanding over 6 buildings. We'll have 59 one-bedroom units, 72 bedroom units, 25 three-bedroom units, a community room, fitness center, and retail space. But the great thing is, and this is where I found my voice here at the Newark Housing Authority, 22 of the residential units will be public housing units, which will complete the Newark Housing Authority's obligation to build 1,777 new units as a result Lots of applause, lots of applause. It completes our obligation to replace the units that, as a result of the high rises that were taken down through across our city. So we're happy today that this building will close out that obligation, a litigation that stretched over almost 20 years. Indeed, there's so many of you that have encouraged and participated in our efforts to make restoring the grandeur of High Street a possibility. We thank you for it, and we look forward to having you back for the ribbon cutting.
I'm going to interrupt our order a little bit, Maria. Sorry. And ask our mayor to speak. He's on a deadline, as mayors tend to be. And I think just to make my remarks brief, one of the things you may notice as you look at the program and the imagery on the front is that this is not your same old project. It doesn't look like your same old project. It's not going to act like your same old project. And it's not trying to be the historic High Street neighborhood, which will stay here even as we add this project. This is an impactful project. It's a stretch. It's a step up. It's taking us to a place we've not been before. And even as I say that, I know I'm echoing the words of the great mayor of the city of Newark, who has said those very same things to its constituents. And we're happy to be a stakeholder here and a partner here. And Mayor, if you could say some words.
Good afternoon. I'm sorry for changing the schedule here, but I have to swear in or get into the academy 200 new police officers that we're putting into the academy. I have to go over there and make sure that happens. And I know many of you want me to be there, as I am glad that the senator is in D.C. making sure these crazy people don't take away our health care, and he's fighting a good fight down there. So I would be upset if he was hanging out here with us. I just want to say this is an opportunity, and I see Reverend Slaughter here, who has a fine institution down the street. And want to say we are desperately trying to make Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, right? What we want to call it, the only Martin Luther King Jr. street in the nation that actually looks like something. Right? Because when you travel around and you see Martin Luther King, you know two things: that you arrived in the community where we live at, and two, is some problems going on that block. And we want to make sure that is not the case in Newark. And I want to thank all of the folks that was mentioned earlier that participated in this project, and I want to thank the folks in the city right now in this administration who helped get it over the finish line. Because that's important, right? That's important. I mean, we could talk about getting in the game and getting on the field and getting it all the way down there, but if you don't cross that red zone, all of that work is for naught. You got to get over that red zone so you can hold your hand up in the air and say touchdown, or won't nobody even remember that you was in the game in the first place. So we are happy to be here today to see that this finally is taking place, right? Finally. Is happening, and we are excited about it. I know the councilwoman is excited about it as well in Central Ward. This is a great opportunity here in the city. And with the work that's going on that end and the work that's happening down here, we're going to be able to complete what's happening on Martin Luther King. And I'm glad that you said that the 22 additional units helps to solidify the Newark Housing Authority's obligation to replacing the units that were taken down. But we are still building as many affordable housing units across the city as we possibly can. It's important to do that, and it's necessary. And I'm not worried. I'm looking at this picture. This is going to be an outstanding development. It's going to be beautiful here. The Montgomery 1 is outstanding, and it still looks great. And Montgomery 2 is going to look even better. I'm excited about it. Can't wait till we come for the ribbon cutting. to see what's happening here and see the new residents and the folks moving into this community. So once again, I want to thank everybody for participating, all of the folks for coming out. My good friend Raheem Islam right here and the work that he's done. You know, I got to shout you out, brother, for being a part of this this project as well. And we're just excited here in the city of Newark. There's a lot more to come and a lot more road to cover. So God bless you.
When I asked the mayor when he had to leave, he said, well, I have lights and sirens. It's all right, well, hurry. Take care, drive safe, and thank you. Pastor Slaughter, rest assured, we're moving you to a blessing from an invocation on behalf of our schedule here today. But as we move down sort of our all-star lineup, we next arrive at Maria Mayo, the longtime executive director of the Jersey City Housing Authority, who now is our HUD regional director here in Newark. And I'm pretty excited always to share a podium with Maria and to share an exciting event like this, because it's just climbing that same mountain over and over again and kind of building an accumulation of accomplishments that will never be taken away from us and will be never taken away from her. Neither will our friendship, obviously, Maria. I'm proud to call you a friend and happy to have you here today.
Oh, this is better. Usually, because I'm short, I have to move the thing. So it's great that they remember that for other groundbreakings. Thank you so much for the invitation. You know, public housing is particularly important to me. Not to say not other things aren't, but public housing has been pretty much my whole professional career. I want to certainly acknowledge the mayor and his remarks. Doing wonderful work in Newark, as well as the councilwoman, who I got to meet recently more often, and I'm sure this will continue. I want to recognize Tony Marquetta, who we're like a tag team. You know, we always kind of, you know, who put the most money into this project? We kind of have that little issue. And I certainly want to acknowledge Diane, my predecessor, for all the work that she did. So Montgomery Heights, you know, when you talk about tenacity, when you talk about what it takes to develop affordable housing, let me just say times squared or quadruple when you're developing public housing, or trying to take what was, it seems, the kind of the poster child for what all the ills of public housing that Montgomery Heights was, and to transform that housing into something that we believe, and hopefully the residents believe, can change their quality of life. You know, we always talk about the buildings, the brick and the mortars, and I'm glad that, Ellen, you spoke about the residents, and I don't ever want to leave them out of the equation. Without them and without their support, you can't do this work. And sometimes the notion of communication, kind of take that for granted. It is so important to make sure that the residents have buy-in, that they understand what it will mean, because relocation's hard. It's hard to leave your home that you've had for a very long time. So I want to, for all the residents here, for all the former residents or new residents, I want to give you a shout out because you're very important to this process. You know, there's a list of folks that will be mentioned, that will be coming up, that provided financial support. I think what it talks about is that's why these deals are so hard to do. It is about trying to put together different financing mechanisms that have their own different rules, and that's why Tim has what is now white hair. It used to be kind of grayish, but now you notice it's turning white there, Tim, because you have to figure out how to put all these resources together in a way that works. And it shows today that with the public-private partnership of the Newark Housing Authority, and let me again commend the Newark Housing Authority for an outstanding job that they've done, not only with Montgomery Heights, but all through Newark, and Penrose. And I did have the honor of also working with Penrose in Jersey City. That team, that's a great team, and they've shown today that that's what it takes to have a great team, great partners, great residents, and a great mayor that has the vision to move these things forward. And I congratulate you all today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Maria. I told you she was my friend, so, and then she hits me with the gray hair joke. All right. I thought we would get more than 3 speakers in, actually. I'm shooting for distinguished. We said this was a long, hard road, right? We'll see. I'll ask my mom later today.
I know your mom.
Yeah, I know. I'm never safe. Yeah. Well, yeah, my mother has come to these events, and she's not here today, but she sends her regrets as well. Moving on to one of our primary funders and our primary advocate here in New Jersey for funding resources, and really a source of great innovation over the past nearly 8 years, Tony. Almost 7 years. Tony Marchetta is the executive director of the NJHMFA, and through the conduit program, if I could single that program out, really turned the tide of the NJHMFA's involvement in affordable housing developments, and cranked up the volume in your tenure. And that's something that I think will live as your legacy, not that we're creating, or signing off your legacy just yet. But proactive, thoughtful programming, and even today, thinking towards the future of how we move forward in a very, very different climate than when we started, together, as it relates to affordable housing within this state, as it relates to an allocation of affordable housing resources in this state, and the headlines that now ask us to serve the missing middle, who is the middle income bracket that now is sort of being left out. I don't think we have those solutions here today, so I don't mean to forebode a great announcement, but we've got some ideas, and the fact that good people are thinking about important things, I think, is how we move forward. So, Tony, if you could, on behalf of our project, say some words.
Well, thank you for describing the project, so I won't go into the details of the project, but the numbers are substantial. Your book tells you that it's over $45 million. And getting to this point takes a lot of effort, but there are three things specifically that have to be there to get to this point. And first and foremost, it's not the money, it's the leadership. And Newark has been blessed with very good leadership, especially the last decade. You have been able to really turn the corner in the last 10 years from where Newark had been viewed as a suffering city to one that it's maybe the new Brooklyn, The image of the city has just been shinier and shinier each and every year. I'm glad to have been part of that. But the leadership of this city, the mayor, the council, the elected officials that are dealing, or the agency officials like the Newark Housing Authority, have all worked very hard. And it's not only leadership, it's persistence in good leadership. And you've had that for a good time now, and things have really started to change. The second thing is a teamwork. Nothing gets done without a lot of different hands participating in the process. And that includes, again, the community itself, the elected officials, the developer, his team, which includes the architects, the planners. Everybody has a piece of that. And again, persistence in the teamwork to get something done. And then the last thing, not unimportant, but not as critical as the other two, is the money. And that's where I come in a little bit. The HMFA has been very, very much part of this process. I tallied up the number of projects and the dollar amount, the total development costs associated with the projects that we've done in Newark since 2010. We are approaching 50 projects and over $900 million. And that's the projects that we actually closed on, not the projects that have been approved and in the pipeline. And as this administration comes to an end, by the end of this year, it's my goal to break that $1 billion mark and see that work get done. So with those 3 points, I do want to mention, and it's unfortunate that Senator Booker couldn't be here. He was one of the original sponsors, co-sponsors, of the Cantwell-Hatch bill, which is to upgrade the affordable housing tax credit, low-income housing tax credit program. That has been the best program. It was done, it was led by the tax reform of 1986, led by another New Jersey Senator, Bill Bradley. But that's when this tax credit program came about. It has been the most effective program of producing affordable housing that the nation's ever seen. Thank you. Senator Booker has signed on to improve that program and enlarge it by 50%. Now, who knows what's going to happen down there? Nobody seems to know from day to day what's going to happen down in Washington. But he's on board to see this program not only stay, but expand. So I want to give him credit for that. And with that, I'm going to close out and say thank you very much.
Thanks, Tony. Our next speaker is the councilman for the Central Ward. Don't jump up here yet. Well, come on up. Come on, I think I want to be in a picture with you. But, we've said here today that we, Penrose One, we like Newark. We love Newark, but we really love the Central Ward. And the Central Ward kind of is the place where we belong. We fit. It feels right. And in a lot of ways, that's because of the center of the Central Ward, which I'm going to say is the Hyde Park Gardens neighborhood. So if you guys can look to my left, your right, and imagine blocks and blocks beyond. This is a co-op, a homeowners association, whatever you want to call it, but people who are dedicated to their homes and dedicated to telling people who are their neighbors, not you got a problem, not we're going to be trouble, but you might have a problem. You might change your message. You might do something a little differently along the line. And we've done our best to listen, and Blani and Sharona here, make sure we know who these folks are, because I don't know who said it or whoever said it best, but it doesn't take a lot of energy to get in the way, right? But these guys have dedicated their energy to making sure that what was going to be done was going to be done in a way that they would want to live next to, and that's that. I can say nothing but thank you. Excellent. So without further ado, our councilwoman.
Thank you very much. I'm so proud to be here today, and certainly as Senator Booker cannot be here because he is taking care of healthcare issues and fighting the good fight down in Washington. And the mayor had to leave because he's fighting the good fight here in Newark to make sure we ensure increasing our police department and making sure that we get back up to the numbers in which Newark has to go in order for us to be able to have the public safety to accompany this kind of housing. But it's especially good to be here because as goes the Central Ward, so will go Newark. And this is the heart, and that's why you feel good about being here. This connects all the city. And the history that's here is just unbelievable. But I want to thank everybody who put this together, especially Newark Housing Authority and the Department of Economic Housing and Development for the city of Newark. You guys don't get enough credit. And I know that the mayor did acknowledge our team. And we thank our partners at the federal, state, and county level. We thank those who came before, Diane Johnson, ensuring. But I just want everybody to just think about the fact that this project took this many years. And had Diane not put the money in place and made sure that it stayed in place, had the Housing Authority, had Keith Kennard and Morris Warner and those folks had not stayed engaged, had HFMA, Tony, you were adding up the money that you've done since 2010, but, I want everybody to understand we're not the new Hoboken. We're Newark, because we've been setting the trend for years. Okay, Newark, I will tell you right now, from HFMA through HUD, has put more affordable housing in this one city than around the country, okay? So per capita, we have more affordable housing units because we understood, like you said, with good leadership, the importance of having that. Like you said, with teamwork, we understand that. But we also understand that with the money, times are changing. When 45 says that there's going to be a change in the tax code, I have been saying to my council colleagues, since last year. That means that people who were normally getting tax credits and stuff, maybe they don't need to apply for them now to have a write-off. And that may mean we have less low-income housing being built. So we have to face that reality and make sure we get more of these things online. And that's why I'm glad that the mayor and the council are working together with Newark Housing Authority and working together with our partners and developers to make sure that we race to the finish line, because that's what this is about now. The stabilizing factor that has been here in this community for the last 47 years, 50, 51 years has been Hyde Park Gardens. And I can remember the battles we had with the Douglas Harrison as well as brick towers impacting the community. And through it all, you guys stayed. So thank you very much. And always work with the community. I remember my friend and council colleague, the late Councilman Donald Tucker, when he did the suit for the one-for-one replacement, when we were starting to take the Hope $6 and build housing in the city of Newark and changing. So I'm going from having advocated for the high towers having come down and now increasing townhouses to now going back up. So, I'm a true elected official because I can now make the justification for both, okay? But I can do it because I can do it from a historical context and understand the need to increase the density here in the city of Newark, because we do not need Jersey City to outpace us as far as numbers come when the census happens, because then Newark will not get the state aid that we need. So this has been a balancing act, but it's been a good one because there's always been the determination of Newarkers in leadership to make sure that we answer the needs of the community, hear from the residents, whether we agree or disagree. We always understand that our objective is to provide quality housing, affordable, market, cooperative. We have to be everything to everybody, and because we're Newark, we can do that. And I thought it was fitting that my pastor, Reverend Ron Slaughter, was not able to do the invocation because Tim missed them. But it's even more important that he closes us out in prayer. Because if nothing else, the prayers of the saints do avail. And this project was prayed about a lot of years. And to send us out with prayer is even more important. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Obviously, another piece of the great leadership that's going on here in the Central Ward. And I especially like that notion that it's time for Newark to go back up, because I think that is exactly what we're doing here today. We are going to shift to the side of finances now and ask Laura Bailey to speak on behalf of Capital One, but she's not the only financer here in the room, and I want to acknowledge one more who I've lost in the crowd, but Vic Augusta is here. Vic is over here. And Hudson Housing Community Capital, who's our syndicator, is also here. I'm scowling. I got that kind of wrong. Kimmel Cameron in the back. And Laura's here with a kind of an all-star cast of Capital One folks who have worked with us not just on this project, but on that project. And so they are also one of our longstanding commitments to the neighborhood. Laura.
Thank you. Good morning. Well, if there is one thing that unites all of humankind, it's the belief that things should be better for our kids, right? That our neighborhood can be better, and it might be possible for us to make it better. And so I wanted to just take this opportunity to recognize the residents of housing in the city of Newark that showed up and spoke up about what their needs were and how the future should look for their families. And I also want to thank the ladies from the neighborhood who did the same for their community. This is what we expect. We expect this standard in our community, and we're going to set the bar and show you where things need to be. So at moments like this, you realize that there's this hidden community of folks that lead us on to the future. And these are the people that I'm describing. Now, when you show up and speak up, then you get the opportunity to work on complex redevelopment projects like this. And so then you meet a whole group of people that you didn't even know existed. You know, I often think people must come to these groundbreakings and wonder, who are these folks? But there is a whole community of people that you've never met before that specialize in doing the financing for affordable housing. We love to work on things that make the world a better place. We depend on the work of the federal government and of the Housing Authority and of the state of New Jersey and of the city of Newark to be able to do what we do. It's all the funds that come from those. And then we add in. So in this development, in this new development, Capital One provided about a $20 million loan for the construction of the new phase. And then we turned around and invested through Hudson Housing, who you heard Tim talk about, in the tax credits that are generated by an affordable development. So we want to be involved both in the lending to this and in the long-term investment of the development. And that's because we are here permanently as partners with you in making this better for our kids and for our neighbors. So that's what's going on. I want to just take this moment to thank some people that are very important to me, and by virtue of that, to this development getting done. And I want to recognize from the Capital One team Tom Houlihan, who led the group that closed this development, Adam Zwern, who was the chief underwriter working on this, Danny Kim, who's the portfolio manager working on this. These are people that in their spare time, they volunteer to build houses, they volunteer with nonprofits. This is in their heart. And I can tell you when you don't see them, they are doing good for you. So thank you for letting me recognize what they do, and thank you for this opportunity to be involved in the future of Newark.
Thanks, Laura. I think it really is meaningful to, I mean, what we're talking about is major private financial investment in this neighborhood. I mean, and that never does go away. And so there are a lot of eyes on us and asking us to continue to perform through construction and obviously through our operations. Next on our list is Diane Johnson, who has worn so many hats. Oh, did you think you were just here to watch? No way. Diane is, as Maria said, her predecessor, and I think the best way for me to say it is that Diane puts people to work. I took a trip to Atlanta once. I didn't even hear from Diane, but I was going because Diane said I needed to go on behalf of this project to advocate to HUD in that office for why these funds should remain and why this project was absolutely going to happen, and to be the private developer who asked people to express continued faith in our efforts and our ability to achieve. And I would say, in a word, and not to elaborate, that I know Diane to be a person of great faith in lots and lots of different ways. And that is manifest here today by her showing up on behalf of the city of Newark and on behalf of her continued interest in our progress. Thanks.
Well, it's really good to be retired, I'll tell you that. But in addition to this, I want you to know that this is truly the day that the Lord has made, because it is, again, another day that a new chapter on Martin Luther King Boulevard is going to take place. The mayor has already told you what the vision was. I, like many others in the city of Newark, because, you know, I live a couple of blocks down in Society Hill, so I'm in the Central Ward. I know what goes on in the Central Ward each and every day. And Tim, you need to know that this is not only Gail's pastor, but that's my pastor, so you need to have him pray about something. But I'm excited about today because I remember when the 220 units of brick towers stood here and Hill Manor was down the street. And I can tell you when Stella and Scudder and Hayes was right up the street. I can tell you that I remember when Jack Parker put the shovel in the ground for brick towers and for Hill Manor. I can remember that. I can remember the fire that took place in Hill Manor. I can remember bringing Washington types up to the city of Newark, standing on Irvin Turner Boulevard and letting them see the sea of concrete walls that our people were living in, and saying to them, all I need you to do is to find the funds. We'll build the units. And so Hope 6 became popular, and we used all the Hope 6 funds. And then we burned the mortgage on the FHA co-ops right over here. But more importantly, I heard that there was some funding available in Washington called the Upfront Grant. You remember that, Ella? And I can tell you that we went down there and we got the money. No one else in this country has the funds that are being used in Brick Towers, Montgomery 1 and 2. Only the city of Newark. Now, I know that y'all may be a little confused that it's public housing, but it was never public housing. It was FHA insured properties that went sour, just like Scudder and Stella, right? And so, because the city of Newark could receive the property, we then transferred it to the Housing Authority, and Ellen then made sure that all of these other things happened. Now, I just want you to know that I know my good friend, Virginia, is looking down. And even though she used to give me hell, not only her, but the mayor, who was then the mayor, who was the tenant on the top floor of Brick Towers, picketed my office every day until I said, Tim, I am going to tear them down. Now, you either move or move out of my way. Well, as you know, Keith Kennard then became the executive director. And when he became the executive director, he was then instructed that he had one thing and one thing only to do. Right, Ellen? And that was to evict the mayor of the then city of Newark. Keith Kennard was quite successful, and he removed the tenant from the Brick Towers so that we could begin the process. But I want all of you to know that in spite of all of that, it was the great leadership. It was the team that came together. It was all the partners that took place in this great city so that our residents can live in safe, sanitary, and decent housing. Now, I just want you to know that everybody talked about the mayor, everybody talked about the residents, everybody talked about the Housing Authority, but no one has talked about the Board of Commissioners, that group that really gives the approvals to allow the Housing Authority to go forward. So I commend them today for this great accomplishment. It is indeed my pleasure, but I want you to know that I enjoy the heck out of retirement.
I mean, come on. That's the kind of retired I want to be. Right there. So as we move towards our blessing, and before we do that, I wanted to acknowledge a couple people. And Jacob, I'd like to ask you to come up. Jacob Fisher is our regional vice president here in New Jersey. And I think, as Laura said, there's just too many people who have to show up here and say, who are these people? We did all the work. And so Jacob's going to roll off a list very quickly of folks who we need to make sure we don't miss. But I also want to recognize here in the back my friend Morris Warner, who is come in the door. We've come a long way, and we got a long way to go. And our Assemblyman, Carmelo Garcia. It's good to see you.
I forgot to acknowledge my council colleague, Councilman of the at-large, Councilman Eddie Osborne, who is also an NHA commissioner. So thank you. I'm sorry, Eddie. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a long morning and a long 10 years or so of working on getting this developed, so I won't hold you long. I've checked off of the list the people that have already been thanked, and I'm going to try to focus on some others just to make sure. I do want to thank the whole notion of the original Brick Towers residents and all of the work and contribution that they made to steering us in a direction. I want to thank the councilwoman for her engagement with the community, for setting up community meetings for us to get the word out about what we're doing. I want to thank our partner, Raheem Islam, for having the foresight to get us involved in Newark, and it's been a great partnership. I want to thank the city engineer, Phil Scott, sitting over there, who has been very helpful in helping us navigate the system to make sure that everything is done and all the I's are dotted and T's crossed. I want to thank, also sitting next to him, is Jennifer Carrillo Perez, our land use attorney, who I think has been with us on this deal through four different flags, but has stuck. 3 different babies. Has stuck with us on this on the project. Want to thank our design team, Wallace Robertson Todd, who have there was a picture of it there, who designed the great building. Joe Healy and Vera Kiselev are here. Mid-Atlantic Engineering, our civil engineers, Bill Parkhill and Jay Fogler. I want to thank our environmental professional, Zach Lewis, Terracon, who is our geotechnical engineer, and then somebody's got to build it. So I want to thank SB Conrad. Jason Hartman is here, as well as Bob, the site super bouncing around somewhere. And I think they really understand what it means to do a project in the Central Ward, and what it means to do a project in Newark, and understand the focus and the eyes that are going to be on this development and are going to do a great job for the city. Financial partners have been mentioned: NJHMFA, Hudson Housing Capital, Capital One, Bellwether Enterprise, and also the significant investments by the Newark Housing Authority. I want to just close by saying a couple of special thank yous. First, on the NHA side of things, Morris Warner has been our enduring partner, friend, sometimes guy sitting on the other end of the table pushing to make sure that it's going to be the right project, and somebody that I consider one of my mentors in the development industry. So thank you very much for all your dedication. And then I also want to extend a special thank you to Ms. Watson and to Sharon for really their. So about 10 years ago, when we were taking down brick towers, I got a phone call. They're like, "You better come up and talk to us." And from that moment forward, we were meeting every couple of weeks. We would have a construction meeting, then we'd go over, make sure that they understood where we were in the process, and that we heard concerns, both from their board and from their residents. And that's been a relationship. I think yesterday when we met, we decided that we called it partnership, friendship, and it continues today. So thank you very much, and thank you for your commitment to the neighborhood. And so with that, I just want to thank anybody that feels that they haven't been thanked, and pass it back over to the MC.
Thanks, Jacob. Reverend Slaughter, your time has come. I would ask that you give us some particular words as it relates to the workforce that's going to build this project. Jacob alluded to it, but we've made a commitment to hire locally, to put people to work here. And construction work is not necessarily a safe environment all the time. And we'll do our best, but we want to get to the finish line with no significant injuries for sure. And if you could send us off in that direction, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. Let us bow our heads. O Lord our God, how excellent and majestic is thy name in all the earth. We honor you and we thank you for this wonderful day and marvelous day that you created all by yourself. Thank you for this groundbreaking ceremony. Thank you for the transformation of the Central Ward of the city of Newark. We thank you for this city. We thank you for all the partners that have played a significant role in this development. I want to thank you for the community stakeholders who have stayed the course to make sure that this facility is something that represents not only the Central Ward and the city, but also represents its citizens. And now, God, we thank you for partial fulfillment of the promise that you gave to Abraham, that you would give us land and we can build on that land. We can settle down and we can live there. Thank you for partial fulfillment of the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he declared, where do we go from here? And one of the greatest plights was economic development and also affordable housing for people of color. We thank you that this project does not erode, does not eliminate those who are less fortunate than us up under this tent. And so now, God, we pray your blessings upon the construction of this building. We pray for every tenant that will live in this building. We pray for every construction worker's safety that will build this building. And God, when that day comes, when we celebrate the ribbon cutting of this marvelous facility, we can remember, as someone said earlier, it's wells that we did not dig and land that we could not afford, but God has made a way. So we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
We We've made it. Okay. We have refreshments here. They don't even look open. Let's make sure they get consumed. Although if they don't, they go into the building and people devour them. So that'll work out just fine. We are going to have a groundbreaking photo op. So I'd ask anybody who wants their picture taken, but certainly our speakers, to make their way quickly there, and then we'll conclude. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Really appreciate it.
Resident. I'm a Newark resident, working on the project, on the construction management team, building a safe environment in a residential facility.
So we're very excited. It's a great opportunity for Newark. It's a great opportunity for the workforce that's in Newark to have quality preschool. We're going to be serving children 18 months to 5 years old. So it's great. I'm Newark, born and raised, and I just love the way the community's coming up again. It's rising again. You know,
I live right across the street. So this is why this project is so important to me. And certainly we've had an awesome relationship with the developers. And so that's why we're here. I've been working with them for several years, and we will continue our relationship as the community.